How you doing, everyone? This is Matthias Atva from Direct Dreadnought, your Dreadnought PS4 replay guy. And this is, again, the RGM-79C Jim Kai. Now, this isn't Gundam Sunday, and I thought that I would do another Gundam video specifically for Mr. D-Bart and a few other subscribers that are really interested in Gundam Battle Operation 2, but seem to have some issues with space combat, and I thought that I would do a quick space tips video. Now, there are some YouTubers out there that are much better at Gundam Battle Operation 2 than I am right now, but for beginners, I thought that I would share some of my thoughts on how to make space combat a little more bearable and fun when you play GBO2. I was going to release another Dreadnought video. To tell you the truth, over the weekend there was a restart, and Onslaught and possibly TDM are broken on Dreadnought. I was playing a couple games of Dreadnought and it was 4v4 on Onslaught, which I thought was really weird, and I did get some sick numbers because when you only have 4 players to kill, you can kill them a lot, especially if you are getting them to where they're not respawning in the same spot or the same place or at the same time. And I thought that was really unfair to all those who participated in the match to post something like that, as comical as it was. And to tell you the truth, I've had a couple of good games in Dreadnought over the last couple of weeks and been catching up with a lot of players, but nothing really groundbreaking or earth-shattering or really impressive to show you for Dreadnought. And I thought that when I get the time this weekend, hopefully maybe Thursday or Friday, but quite possibly Saturday, I would put out another Dreadnought Tactics video, and I won't spoil the surprise, but I think everyone will like it. But in the meantime, I thought I would address Mr. D-Bart's question about space combat in Gundam Battle Operation 2, and I just so happen to have a really good 9-0 and 8-0 replay. I actually have quite a few of these because I'm really getting the hang of the Jim Kai at low-level gameplay. But I picked the 2 best that weren't just really bad wipes. There was one 9-0 I got in which me and another player had gotten into the spawn of the other team, and even though we killed a bunch of other mobile suits, we happened to kill this one player who must have been a noob and kept respawning again and again and again in the same spot, and we wound up killing him 4 or 5 times, and it was really not very fun to watch. The other 8-0 I got was a lot of fun to play, but when I watched it, it just really didn't impress me. And so these are the 2 I picked, and I think that they're pretty good, but they're not going to demonstrate some of the tricks I've even learned this past weekend. I became a Lance Corporal in the game, which enabled me to choose my custom colors, and of course, you might have seen that or noticed that on my Casual Gundam Sunday video on the RX-79G Ground Gundam. You might have seen my first video with custom colors. I do like the blue chest, white limbs, Earth Federation colors, and I try to work a little red in there, kind of like my Empire paint job in Dreadnought, which of course is kind of modeled really roughly on the old Stars and Stripes red, white, and blue. I do like taking the shine off my mobile suits and adding a whole bunch of weathering and making them very dull and weathered and looking like they've seen a lot of combat. So you will see some newer Casual Gundam Sunday videos with a nice new fresh Direct Dreadnought paint job on all my mobile suits, including the Xeon ones, because nothing angers Xeon players quite as much as coloring a Zaku in captured Federation colors. But enough on that. Later, let's get to space combat for Mr. D-Bart and Nick Mecha and everyone else who loves Gundam Battle Operation 2. The advantages of space combat, it's a lot to take in at first, but the problem with ground combat is that you're really only fighting on a single plane, and you can jump and duck and lie down. That is true. But you're spending 90% of the match in a lateral left-right plane, and it makes this very easy to hit you. It also makes it very easy for you to get stuck in pinch points or choke points where you can be grenaded or bazookaed. I know raid mobile suits have a really good time on ground maps, and so do support mobile suits. So if you are a general use mobile suit, space is really the place for you. But raids do very well in space, and a keen support mobile suit pilot, especially for gun cannons or Zaku cannons, can do very well in space too. Not so much for snipers, but or any sort of gun tank or anything that's stuck on the ground. But if you are a gun cannon or a Zaku cannon, you can do pretty good in space. The very first thing you want to learn is, of course, make it a habit of going up and down. I see a lot of rookies out there going out and fighting on that same two-dimensional lateral plane like Khan from the Wrath of Khan in Star Trek. They're not realizing that you can go up and down. It makes you very hard to hit, adding that third dimension, being able to go up, go down, and then do the diagonals, the 4 diagonals between the directions, as well as altering your speed, going back and forth, and strafing back down, back up, or forward down, and everything in between. It makes you incredibly hard to hit, and you really want to take advantage of that. You can also use boost much more effectively. On ground, you can boost and hit a lot of objects, where in space you have just a little bit more room to boost behind objects, and you can really put a lot of power into the throttle and recover behind any piece of terrain, and that's just great. So try to think three-dimensionally. While you're at it, your attack vector is very important. A lot of people just charge straight into the enemy, and if you have a shield either on your shoulder for Zaku's, or for GMs, you have it on your left arm, you expose your chest and your head to fire when you're charging straight at an enemy. You want to take advantage of using multiple vectors, going above and to the right of the enemy and then swinging in left, or below them to the left and swinging in right, and so far. You want to strafe and circle around your enemy, not just charge into them. You want to avoid as much fire as possible by using this omnidirectional sort of mentality. And those of you that are, of course, Dreadnought fans should have no problem with this, especially Corvette and Destroyer captains, because you're used to moving up and down in Dreadnought and taking advantage of the pseudo three-dimensional space that you're provided. So that's very important. First tip, take advantage of the three-dimensionality of it, and of course use different attack vectors besides just straight in and straight out. My next tip is that you should really get used to the space controls. In particular, you want to pay attention to your left-hand triggers on your PS4 controller. On ground, the L1 button is for jumping. You hold it down to jump farther or do a quick jump from side to side, forward or up. And of course, you can use the L2 trigger to kneel, lie down, or to quick jump down if you're already in midair. But in space, you're using the L1 to ascend like in Dreadnought, but you're using the L2 to descend, which is different. That is your zoom in Dreadnought, so that's a little tricky to get used to. And of course, there's something even further. There's a quick turn in which you can press L1 and L2 together and a direction, either right or left, and you will very quickly spin using a little bit of thrust. You can't do this if your engines are on cooldown, but you can very quickly change direction. There is also a quick ascend and quick descend, and you don't see that much in these two particular replays. You will see them a lot in the future, especially from some of the stuff I did this weekend. But a lot of new players have a habit of overshooting because they're so used to going forward and backwards on ground that they ascend forward or they descend forward and vice versa when they're backing up. Backing up is really tricky because if you want to descend and you're moving backwards, you have a tendency to descend very, very slowly. So instead of overshooting your target where you're trying to ascend but you wind up flying underneath them or you overshoot them from above, you have a quick ascend and descend in which you press thrust and L1 or thrust and L2, and train yourself not to use the directional when you do this, and do this in very short bursts, and you'll do a very quick ascend straight up or a descend straight down. This is very handy. If you overshoot a target, you can then descend very quickly without using much thrust, and then press L1 and L2 together to do a quick spin, and there you are. You move yourself 180 degrees very rapidly, and you're right behind them in their 6 o'clock. Perfect position to shoot them down. Many times when you are being attacked, instead of moving forward or backwards, you can actually quick descend, and then they'll overshoot you from above. You can do a quick turn and shoot them from below, or you can also do this to do more of a jagged evasive maneuver where you can quick boost up and then boost either left or right, and almost make these squares or triangles as you move, and it makes you particularly hard to hit. So those are really key button features you want to know when you're doing space combat. Don't overshoot your target. Don't just go forward and backward. Use those 3 dimensions. Use quick boosting up, down, to the side, and definitely if you overshoot or you're being hit from behind and you have a little bit of boost left, you can use the quick turn, which is extremely rapid and very handy. The third tip I would like to drop on you is, if you're using shields, use them properly. The Zaku's have shields often in their left forearm and right shoulder. Some other mobile suits on Zeon's side have them on the left arm, but a vast majority of the Federation mobile suits, particularly the Jims and the Gundams, not so much the gun cannons or the snipers, have very, very big shields on their left arms, and you want to use this. If you fly straight at your enemy because you're getting hit and you're losing control, and you pull out your beam saber and put the emotion bar in your cockpit all the way to 150 million%, and you charge straight at your enemy, you are, of course, exposing your head, chest, and legs to a full frontal attack, and you are probably going to get owned. What you should do instead is, if you're attacking and you know you have a shield in a particular arc, especially in your left arc, you want to strafe forward and to your right, and that covers half your body, particularly your back and your thrusters, which if they get hit, remember in Gundam Battle Operation 2, if you get hit in particular quadrants of your mobile suit, such as your leg thrusters, your back thrusters, it can suddenly cripple your mobility, and if you take a serious hit to the back, it can often make you slow to a limp or a crawl, and it's awful being that slow in the middle of space. Everyone's going to notice you and want to shoot you. You want to strafe to your right, and to keep your enemy that way, you want to make sure you're strafing in a circle forward and to the right to close distance to your optimum weapon range, while still protecting at least half or sometimes more, in the case of the Federation large shield, of your mobile suit with your shield. When you are being attacked, especially from multiple opponents in a single vector, remember in GBO2 a lot of players like to gang up on lone targets, which is going to be a point I'm about to make very soon. You want to thrust backwards. When you thrust backwards, particularly straight back or down and back, your shield covers not only your chest and your arm, but also portions of your leg, and you'll be surprised exactly how much damage your shield takes. Just be careful, because if your shield breaks, you will be stunned for a little bit, so just be ready for that. Once you get used to that shield break stun effect, when your shield blows up, you're stunned. If you know why you're stunned, it's not so bad and you can react, and it's not so long. When the first time your shield breaks, you're going to think someone's, doing some funky stuff to you, but it's actually that your shield blew up. You're stunned for a second or two, it'll be fine. When you get used to that happening and you realize you still have close to full health, you'll be glad that shield was there. Remember, when you're being attacked, especially from multiple opponents in one direction, or from one of those really crazy Rhino raid players that like to charge straight at you with guns blazing, with a beam saber at the ready, be sure that you're backing up and exposing less of your mobile suit and taking advantage of that hull point on your shield, that it is taking damage instead of your mobile suit. The fourth point I want to bring up, which is very important, and this also works for you dreadheads out there. I know many of you have learned this the hard way, but you don't want to be alone. You don't want to be singled out. When you get much better at the game, then when you're watching this video, this advice doesn't matter anyway. When you get much better at the game, you can try pulling out a raid. There are some really great raid mobile suits out there. I'm a big fan of the Royal Gym Guard. It has this Titanic shield with machine guns built into it and a cool little beam knife, and it does lots of damage. There are some really great Xeon raid space mobile suits out there, and they can pack a wallop and stun you with their giant bazookas and then just cut you to ribbons with either a heat axe known as a heat hawk or a heat sword. Until you're at that point, you really don't want to be going out there alone, especially if you're a support or general use mobile suit. You're just not going to put out the damage that's worth a surprise attack. A lot of times I tried to sneak around like a Brutus in Dreadnought or like a Corvette from Dreadnought. You sneak around, get the drop on someone, do a little bit of damage, and they turn around and just mess you up, and then their friends find you as well, and you're so far away from your team, you're just going to get hosed. And that's the bottom line is raids can do the damage for surprise attacks. They can get in there and do serious damage. They can stun someone and then hit them 2-3 times with a melee weapon and really do the damage. If this isn't you, you're either not good enough to be a raid or you're a different class from raid. Sneaking around and trying to be a ninja is really not the best thing for you. You want to stick with your team and break the rock, paper, scissors mechanic of the game by having multiple other class types with you. If you're a general use mobile suit and you're doing well and you're shooting down these raids that are chasing your support mobile suits, and you're doing well and all of a sudden a bunch of support mobile suits start picking on you, you can drop back behind your support mobile suits and they can trade blows while you heal up or find a better position, or you can escort a raid in. You can shoot down other raids that are attacking your buddy in a raid mobile suit, and the raid mobile suit can get in there and attack those support mobile suits on the enemy team. You really want to use these team tactics together. Even the most rudimentary team cooperative tactics in Gundam space combat goes such a long way. If you're being attacked in space and being bullied on in space, it's so much worse than on ground. Yeah, it can be pretty bad with the bullying on ground, but if you're alone and you get attacked by 3 mobile suits from 3 different directions, including up and down, in the middle of a space map, you are in big trouble. You might as well just jump out of your mobile suit and go get another, because you are probably going to die unless you are Amuro or Char or some kind of new type. It's just not going to happen. So definitely stick with your team. If you're a surprise raider, be very careful, because this is not like other games. These mobile suits are pretty rugged. It's very rare to go in there and get a one-hit kill. I've seen some draw C builds of some higher tier players that are raiders that can do it in 2 to 3 hits, but it's still a protracted engagement, and you really don't want to get the drop on an enemy if they have 2 buddies nearby that will just turn right around and start shooting you. So use the team tactics. Don't get caught alone. If you're alone and you see 2 to 3 mobile suits coming to you, go ahead and boost straight back, occasionally going up and down. Get back to your team, take damage on your shield, and then when you're with your team, turn the tides or find a spot, heal, sneak around. I've made some pretty deft escapes though. If you're outnumbered and things are going bad, go back to your team. I've made some great escapes using terrain and speed and the dodge maneuver that most general mobile suits have. You can get out of there. Don't think that you're screwed. Just try not to be alone. Get back with your team. My last piece of advice is make sure you have the right mobile suit and the right weapon and equipment for space. So the things in space are, the tactics and strategy are a little different from ground. It's a little less forgiving with aim and a little better for dodging and tactics. It's a lot of fun. It's much more in-depth than ground combat, but you want to be using the right weapons. In space, a little bit extra speed, armor, and powerful weapons really goes a long, long way, much longer than on ground. You can get away with murder on the ground. You can sneak around in a level 1 gym trainer or a level 1 Zaku 1 and just totally ham it up and get away with a lot of stuff on ground. That is not the case in space. When you're a level 1 basic gym or a gym trainer and you get into space, you're going to be outclassed. You should really spend some of the in-game currency, not your own currency unless you want to, spend the in-game currency to, they're actually pretty cheap, around 10,000 game bucks. I think they're called DP. 8 to 10,000 game bucks will get you a good solid level 1 200 to 250 point mobile suit for space. Spending a little more will actually get you a good 300 point. A good starting 300 pointer is the gun cannon, mass production type. A great 200 pointer I really like is the, of course, Jim Kai. A good 250 pointer is the Zaku Kai. Those are just really basic mobile suits to get you in the fight that have the correct stats that just completely overshadow 100-point mobile suits. Don't go into space battles with 100-point mobile suits. Go into ground battles with a 100-point mobile suit. Get some bucks, get some experience, get some loot drops from your daily missions or contracts. Get those tokens over a couple days and get yourself a decent space mobile suit. The other thing, you want to choose the correct weapon. Raids really can't get away with machine guns and the such in space. You're charging in, trying to do a melee attack using machine guns or rockets or something. It's just not going to do it. You're just going to fly into a world of hurt. Everyone's going to see you flying in, unshielded, in a straight line, and they're just going to open up and let her rip right on your poor, sorry world. It's awful. Raids really want to have stun weapons. You want to have a bazooka or a beam rifle or something in which you can sneak up on an opponent, don't fire at long or medium range, wait till you're point blank and you're not going to miss, and just hammer them, stun them, pull out your Heat Hawk, pull out your Beam Saber, and just chop them up 2 to 3 hits, kick them away, go hide, rinse, repeat. You got it. That's the plan with raids. With supports really want machine guns of some sort. As a support, unless you're a sniper, and I don't recommend, unless you're a really good player, I don't recommend being a gym sniper in space. What you really want to do is have a gun cannon or a Zaku cannon or some other mobile suit with a heavy cannon, and you want to have a machine gun in your arm or a Vulcan as a secondary weapon. You want to be able to shoot something like a raid coming straight at you. You really want to be firing that main weapon at long distances. You stop in a safe place and snap fire. That's what I like to do. I don't stay in one place and just aim and zoom. I don't even zoom in space. I just go in there, stop for a second when I see someone attacking one of my friends in melee because I know they're not going to be moving fast, or if they're repairing, or if they're not paying attention, or they're going slow enough where I can lead them. I stop for a split second, fire off a shot, move forward a little, or move to the right or the left, or up and down a little, stop again, fire a shot, and then when someone notices you putting all this damage and stunning the enemy, when these enemies charge in at you, you want some sort of medium range, close range machine gun to deal with those problems. General use, I love using machine guns. I think that the pace at which you're flying around, you really can't land those bazooka hits, you really can't land those beam rifle hits. You just, that's more for the raids. They have the speed to get into a range where it's extremely hard to miss. As a medium range general use mobile suit, you want as many rapid fire weapons as possible. I love the Kai, I love the Jims for that because they can hit you with the bullpup or the machine gun, and they can go to a secondary weapon like head Vulcans. I've seen grenades used in space. I think unless you're really good, if you can hit me with a grenade in space, you're really good, okay? So grenades not so much in space. You really don't want to be using. You want to be using machine guns, rapid fire weapons. Even beam pistols are rapid fire enough. Beam rifles are really hard to hit with in space unless you're already really good. And if that's the case, this video probably isn't for you. So that was some quick tips and advice for Gundam in space, and I hope you guys have better luck out there, especially Mr. D-Bard. If you ever want to squad up, guys, just get a hold of me on the weekend when I'm playing Gundam Battle Operation 2, and I'll be happy to play with my subscribers. I think that would be great. So I'll see you out there, and that's about it for me for now, and I'll see you soon in Sinley Bay.